What you're looking at is very possibly the nicest watch from Invicta in recent memory. Certainly, it's the most restrained and understated. This dive watch from Invicta is part of their 1953 Pro Diver series. When it debuted in 2019, this model actually sold out and was being scalped online for much higher prices. This is the Invicta 1953 Pro Diver model number 31290. It is currently available at both Amazon and Joma Shop for 104 US dollars. Joma Shop also has the Batman version with the black and blue bezel available for $89. Hey everyone, welcome back to Eric's Everyday Watches. As always, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. It comes in this two-part packaging. On the outside, we have a thin black sleeve, which has been embellished with a spot varnish on top, and on the front, we have in the Invicta logo and tagline, done in that same spot varnish. Removing that, we have a rather nice sturdy yellow box with a series of debossed lines on the top, almost in a sunburst pattern. And on the front, we see the Invicta logo and tagline, this time done in a black raised ink. And opening up that, we see not only the watch itself, but on the inside of the top cover, we have the Invicta warranty card, as well as a microfiber cloth. And that microfiber cloth is, well, of course, it's in yellow, but then on the other side, we see it actually has the Invicta name on it. Now, the watch itself is presented on a nice, thick foam pillow, and that pillow, of course, is yellow. But take a closer look at this pillow, and what do you see? They actually put the Invicta logo on the pillow, too. I have to admit, this is actually a really nice packaging for a $100 watch. Much more than you'd normally get for $100. The case and bracelet on this watch is 316 stainless steel, with a diameter coming in of 40 millimeters, not including the crown. We have a lug-to-lug distance of a very compact 47.5 millimeters, and that is with a bracelet that completely folds underneath, meaning that this should fit just about everybody's wrist. Now, the case has a chamfered edge where the side meets the top, and that area has been given a high polished finish. The only other part of this watch with a polished finish is the exhibition case back. The rest of this case, and the bracelet for that matter, all have a brushed finish to it. The fit and finish is surprisingly nice. There are no sharp corners on the top or bottom of the case. All the edges are nice and smooth to the touch. The top and bottom of the watch feels like it should, and there are no sharp corners to be found. Even the edges of the bracelets have been given the attention that they deserve. And that bracelet does fit nicely into the lugs, matching up evenly to the top of the lugs. The only small nitpick here is that the brushing done on the lugs and the bracelet are not done in the same direction. And this may be why the color of the two seem to be slightly off. Overall, I am super impressed with what Invicta has done here. For a company known for making large, somewhat gaudy watches, this seems reserved. It has not even been engraved with the logo on the side of the case, which, by the way, is what has stopped me from buying an Invicta dive watch for years. This 40 millimeter diameter watch is something that everyone can wear. And with the thickness coming in at 14.5 millimeters, I would say it is going to appeal not only to Invicta's fan base, but to the larger watch community in general. Now, this watch does take inspiration from a vintage Rolex watch made back in what year? You guessed it, 1953. But to Invicta's credit, it is not a direct copy. There are some differences. And I think that was a smart move on Invicta's part. This is not a $30,000 watch. It's a $100 watch. And had they tried to make it exactly the same, I think it would have failed. Instead, they made what, in my opinion, is a great looking watch at a price point that makes you think to yourself over and over, this is only $100 and it's from Invicta? Moving on back of the watch, we have an exhibition case back with text that reads Invicta, water resistant 200 meters, the model number, and all stainless steel. Taking a peek inside the engine room, we have one of the world's most popular automatic movements, and that is the NH35, which is the heart of this watch. And that movement is a 24 joule automatic movement beating at 21,600 beats per hour, 16 beats per second. It has a 41-hour power reserve, it does hack, and it does hand wind. In case you're ever wondering, about 55 manual turns of the crown will fully wind the watch. Now it is rated at a -20 to +40 seconds a day. Invicta did embellish the rotor with their signature yellow color, but if you notice, they did not hide the fact that it is an NH35, because why would they? The sign crown at the 3 o'clock position is 6.5 millimeters in width and 5 millimeters in depth, which is nicely sized for this watch. It does have a pattern providing some grip. It is a screw down crown, of course, giving you that 200 meters of water resistance. Unscrewing it frees the crown to wind the watch. Pulling it out to that first position does absolutely nothing. Since this watch does not have a date feature, it is simply a ghost position. But pulling it out to the second position does adjust the time. Would it have been nicer to not have a ghost position? Sure. But would you want to give up the NH35 movement in this $100 watch? Most of us will happily live with the ghost position. Now let's talk about the dial, starting with that aluminum bezel insert. It is a flat black color with a lume pip at the 12 o'clock position. Now this is a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and the action is quite nice with zero backplay and a nice confirming audio sound to it. Back in 2019, when this model was first introduced, there were reviews stating that the bezel does not line up correctly at the 12, 3, 6, and 9 positions. But as you can see here, that was not the case with this one. Either I happened to be very lucky today and I bought the one where everything lines up, and if that's the case, I need to go out and buy a lottery ticket today. Or Invicta has improved their quality control over the last couple of years and fixed this issue. Moving inside from there, we have a tan-colored minute track printed directly on the dial, helping to give this watch a vintage-inspired modern look. And inside of that minute track, we have loomed circular indices around the dial, with baton indices appearing at the 3, 6, and 9 positions, which also have been loomed. At the 12 o'clock position, we have a downward pointing arrow, and below that arrow, we find the Invicta text. Further down the dial, on the other side of the center post, we see the words 1953 and automatic, again printed in that same tan color. The dial itself is a simple flat black color with no texture or sunburst pattern, keeping the dial very clean as you'd expect from a vintage-inspired dive watch. Overall, I would say that this watch has a classic, sporty look to it, and it's very attractive. Now, this is not at all the approach Invicta has become known for over the years. Generally, their watches have this in-your-face, large and in-charge approach to the designs. Even their other dive watches have had their name etched into the side of the case as large as possible. Now this 1953 diver is a welcome change in my opinion, and I'm hoping that Invicta introduces more models which pay homage to their own early designs. The fence post style hands on this watch have been outlined in a metallic gold color and incorporate lume into the center. Now both hands offer a high amount of contrast against the black dial, making for easy legibility. The second hand with its lollipop end is more than long enough, extending all the way to the minute track and practically touching the halt. Now this may be the one time I ever say this about any watch. They could have shortened the second hand a millimeter or two and it still would have been fine. The second hand does not have any lume on it, and while it may not be necessary, it would have been an added bonus to have the lollipop been lumed. The green color lume on this watch does glow brightly, but unfortunately it does fade quickly. Topping off that dial, we have a flat piece of scratch-resistant mineral crystal, as you would expect for this price range. Now, Invicta could have chosen to use a dome crystal, which would have been more true to the vintage-inspired approach, but then in my opinion, either a sapphire or an acrylic crystal would have needed to be included. One would have increased the overall cost, and the other would have increased the maintenance required. So maybe on this $100 diver, a mineral crystal was a decent choice. Or at least an okay choice. At least it wasn't a terrible choice, put it that way. The metal bracelet that comes with this watch is 20 millimeters wide at the lugs and tapers down to 18 millimeters wide at the clasp. It is a solid link bracelet, however the end links are hollow. Now there is an Invicta logo which is stamped into the clasp, and that is a pressed clasp with a fold over safety to it and 4 micro adjustments, which pretty much assures everyone will get a good fit with this. In my everyday use, I did find that the clasp was a little stiff and had to be forced open a little bit more than I expected. Hopefully, this is something I would loosen up over time. Overall, the bracelet feels much better than you'd expect given the money, and while it is not a bracelet you would find on a luxury watch, it does put some bracelets on other $100 watches to shame. So let's go over the specs for this watch. We have a mineral crystal, the NH35 movement, a diameter of 40 millimeters, not including the crown, a thickness of 14 millimeters, a lug width of 20 millimeters, and finally a lug-to-lug distance of 47.5 millimeters. And finally, let's wrap up by going over the pros and cons. For pros, it is a very good looking dial. It's kind of understated with a classic sporty look to it. It does come with the NH35 movement, which is extremely reliable, even if it does have that ghost position. It is very legible, and it comes with 200 meters of water resistance. It also has a very good fits and finish, and the bezel action is very solid with no backplay. Plus, the clasp does have micro adjustments. For cons, it does come with a mineral crystal, the clasp is stiff to use, and the lume does fade quickly. So my final thoughts on this watch, if you have a budget of $100 and you're looking for a vintage-inspired diver, Invicta is checking a lot of boxes here, and it does appear that they have upped their quality control since this was first introduced. Now I am going to hold out hope that Invicta continues to go down this design direction, and in the future, instead of asking ourselves, this is Invicta, we might start saying, this is Invicta. This has been Eric from Eric's Everyday Watches. Remind you to buy the watch that you love and don't pay any attention to what anybody else says or thinks. This is your watch collection. If you like this video, if you find it helpful in any way, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.